Sorry, David, we are not as professional as you are.
No problem.
Not set up as professional is
And
what I should say.
I don't need to be introduced. You can just even say my name. Nobody
Oh,
cares how good you were or all the things you've done. They only care that you're good today.
that's true. Okay, then I'll say this is David Horsager. He is the CEO of Trust Edge Leadership, and he will give us a presentation on trust and leadership.
Hey, it is a treat to be here. Thanks so much. Thanks to the whole team. I know a ton of work has gone into this, and I know you've had a great conference already. And I know a lot of people from Danny to Lynn to Mark to the whole team there have put a whole lot into this. And I just have to say, we're going to talk about something today really important to me. But for those of you that have been part of Extension or land grant universities, I mean, I come from a line of from grandparents, great grandparents of my kids, grandparents, parents, and my 5 siblings all went to a land grant university. So anyway, it's a treat to be here. For me, if any of you touch 4-H youth development, I get to do what I get to do today because of 4-H youth development. And I'm so grateful for that. If any of you remember, so many of my experiences, my trip to Israel was because of 4-H and winning a speaking trip there, and the Chicago Club Congress when they used to do that, and just getting off that little bean farm in north central Minnesota. I just have to give a huge debt of gratitude to 4-H youth development, and I know many of you touched that or have touched 4-H or are doing even other great things that come through Extension and CYFAR and the Land Grant University just whole institution. And so it is a treat to be here. Here's where we're going. I believe a lack of trust is the biggest expense you have and I have. I think this goes back to my graduate work, all the work we do out of Trust Edge Leadership Institute. Today, I hope we'll take a different look at trust. You know, I thought I knew it all about trust. I thought, oh, it takes a long time to build trust. Or I thought, trust is this, trust that. Trust, for many people, they think they either have it or they don't. They think it takes a long time to build. On a moment like 9/11, complete strangers trust each other in just a second if they're running the same direction. We can think, transparency is trusted, and that might be true, except for confidentiality is also trusted. Some of your kids are so transparent on social media, I don't trust them for a second, right? So I want us to take a different look at this old word because I believe trust is always the leading indicator. I believe everything else lags where people are concerned. If you think you have a leadership issue, you never do. It is always a trust issue. In fact, the only reason I follow a leader or not is trust. Even if you're not into sales, or in some ways you are, sales is never a sales issue. The only reason I buy, unless it's a commodity, is trust. We think about diversity and inclusion, even the theme of your event today, and we think I would say the bottom line is the biggest Harvard Putnam study shows diversity on its own pits people against each other most often, unless you have trust. And with trust, you get amazing benefits of diversity and inclusion and equity and even justice. So we have to think differently, I believe, about this old word. I think the number one word everybody's asking about you in your community, if you're a coach, if you're recruiting, if you're out in the community trying to help people, if you're your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, your spouse, partner, or friend, the question everybody is asking is not, do I like you? I've got friends I like a whole lot. I love watching the game with them. I wouldn't go into business with them in a million years. The number one question everybody's asking about you is, can I trust you? That's the question that has to be answered. This goes back to my graduate work, all the work we've done over the last 2 decades out of the Institute. I believe trust is not a soft skill. It affects the bottom line and impact and everything more than anything else. So if we're going to think about today, whether it's your theme or just success in life or at work, we have to think differently, I believe, about trust. Everything of value is built on trust, and we have a huge opportunity today. Today, you think of when could you build trust the fastest? First interaction, that's a good time. Your fastest opportunity to build trust is in crisis and recovery. Right now, you've had some change, I've had some change. We've had some massive challenges in the teams and families that we serve. we have a huge opportunity how we respond in this crisis. You think of, when was George W. Bush the most trusted as president? The week after 9/11. How we respond in a crisis matters more than ever. But before we get into this too deeply, I know you're thinking, oh, we got a trust expert coming on. We're going to have to, give back rubs or do trust falls. Well, here's your trust fall today.
Buddy, your sister wants to try something that's called a trust fall. She just learned how to do it.
Okay.
You want to try it?
Sure.
It's super easy. All right, what you need to do is you close your eyes, and then you're going to fall, but she's going to catch you.
Okay.
All right? You promise to get your brother, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. So close your eyes. Now go catch your brother. All right, on the count of 3, I want you to fall, but she'll catch you. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no.
I'm going to look at 3 a lot. All right, here we go. So let's look at this. I can see, when I'm looking at this camera, I can see you. We've got a trust issue, don't we? I love the smile, Kimberly, and I love your glasses. Hey, anybody that's willing, look at that smile, Diana. Oh, Philip, Lawrence, Ely. All right, I love this. So I can see all of you on my screen in studio. You can see me. Sorry about that. But basically, let's take some time, and if you're willing, show your screen. Now, if something I don't understand, no problem. But if you're willing, it's okay if your 4-year-old runs behind you in their undies and the cat jumps on the typewriter. Can anybody know what that is? Only a few of us, a little older, right? So, but let's have fun. Let's connect, because this is about trust, and you build trust a lot faster if you show your screen. Thank you, Herman McCain, Autumn, Jessica. All right. If there's some reason you don't want to show your backdrop, I get it, and it is okay. Allison, who's not showing hers, is from our team right here in studio. So let's think about this for a second. Just work with me. In the chat, get ready to chat really quickly. We want to keep this going, right? If you had to define trust with one word, what would that be? Go ahead and define it, put it in the chat, because we have different definitions of trust. We have different pictures of trust in our mind. Let me just show you a few pictures while you're putting it in the chat. Gentlemen in the room, here's a picture of trust. Who wants to be the last dude? Christopher Petty, you're up. All right. My sons understand trust. There's a public restroom. The stall wasn't available. When I walked on the scene, it looked like that. That little, how old was he at the time? Micah, he trusts his brother, doesn't he? Even animals have a perspective of trust. All right, I can see some of the chat right now. Safety, yes, if you create a safety, both psychological safety and physical safety, trust increases. Someone says consistency. You're absolutely right. Whatever you do consistently, I tend to trust. If you're late all the time, I will trust you to be late. I heard you, Kimberly. That's right. Whatever you trust. If you don't wear enough clothes, I trust you are Kardashian, right? Whoever you are. I'm not talking about Kimberly here. I'm saying everybody. So if you do certain things consistently, I'll trust you. If you do other things consistently, I trust, for good or bad. The only way to build a reputation is consistency. What you do all the time. The only way to build a brand is consistency over time. So love, reliability, predictability. Yes, if I can predict it or I can count on it, I tend to trust it. These are great words. Thank you, everybody. So we have different pictures in our mind on what trust is. We can think it takes a long time to build when, in fact, most trust is built quickly. We can think confidence is trusted, but of course, if that leads to arrogance, that isn't trusted. We can think if I extend more trust to my team, I'll get more out of them, until I extend too much and we have a huge trust problem. We can think transparency is trusted, and it can be, but so is confidentiality. So it's more complex than we think, and yet, when we go back to my graduate work, all the research we do, the leading indicator of real, genuine, lasting success always came down to trust. So let's get a definition for our time together. I hope this encompasses many of the brilliant things you said. It's hard to define trust actually in just a quick definition, but this is how we defined it out of the original research and the Institute. Trust is a confident belief in a person, a product, or an organization. And when I can confidently believe in you, everything changes. I mean, I'm going to give you the first, an infographic from the first half of all my graduate work, and we've confirmed this now over the last decades. And in fact, the framework we're going to show you for building trust was just validated as the framework for how trust is built globally across continents and cultures and even industries. We'll get to that, but first let's just take a look at what happens when trust goes up in anything. Here's what happens. Every time trust increased, hundreds of organizations, thousands of leaders, output, morale, retention, productivity, innovation, loyalty went up, costs, problems, skepticism, attrition, time to market, it went down. Think about this. You know, we think trust is just this ambiguous thing, or you have it or you don't. It's not true. You can actively build it. You can actively build it. And when you do, it changes everything. Let's write a text to somebody, everybody, right? Now, let's write a text to someone we trust. How long does that take? Bloop! It's done, right? Now, try to write a text to someone you don't trust. How long does that take? Forevermore. How are they going to take this? Well, how are they going to take that? Right? A lack of trust always costs. Think of the lock business. Why do I put a lock on anything? I don't have to give you all the research. It's simple, right? I put a lock on something because I don't trust you. The only reason I have a lock is because I don't trust. And what's the cost of putting a lock on something? Money for the lock, but the big cost is what? Time. Now I've got to open it. So this doesn't mean I believe we should trust everyone. There's good reasons not to trust. Let's take a look at the first time I saw the economic impact of trust, and then we'll get into some reasons not to. You know, the first time I saw the economic impact of trust was, I grew up in Verndale, Minnesota. It's 500 people. I didn't grow up there. I grew up 8 miles from there on a 1,500-acre bean farm out in the middle of nowhere in the poorest county in Minnesota. It's about 3 hours drive from Minneapolis, St. Paul. What do I remember? Driving home from town. Halfway home, at the end of his long dirt driveway, Mr. Olson's veggie stand, produce stand. In the midst of the beans and broccoli and beautiful vegetables, there was a box with cash bills sticking out of the box. But nobody worked the stand. What are you supposed to do at Mr. Olson's stand? That's right, make your own change and pay what you owe. We call this system the honor system or trust system. And where you can create it, it is the most efficient system you can possibly create. Of course, this doesn't mean I should trust everyone. There are good reasons not to trust, but where I can create this, in my team, my company, my organization, I've just created the greatest efficiency I can create. Okay, so it's true, a lack of trust is the biggest expense we have, whether that's in a relationship or an organization or our recruitment or our effectiveness. It always comes down to trust. Now, let's think about this. That doesn't mean I should trust everyone, right? In the chat, really quick, I'm going to jump over to 3. Why should I not trust someone? I mean, there's good reasons not to trust, right? One reason for me, I don't trust my flight to be on time because I've had experience. I used to fly a couple hundred times a year until about 6 months ago, right? So I don't trust. Why else don't I trust? Let's see it in the chat. I don't trust that boy with my daughter. I've been a boy. Right? So I don't trust the people that say things they don't mean, like someone who says this, right? Just trust me. I did tell you, I said that. Trust is not stated, trust is earned. Let's see, betrayal, past experience. Hey, Diane says she loves Verndale. Oh my goodness, somebody even knows where it is. 500 people and a lot more cattle. That's amazing. Okay, lies. Risk, gossip. Yes, gossip is a faux trust builder, right? We gossip together. We kind of think we're building trust with each other, but it's not true because then I walk away and think, well, you might do the same to me. Complaining is much the same. We complain about something and then we don't actually build trust. We just whine about it like, oh, I didn't sleep last night very well. Oh, I didn't sleep either. Yeah, I haven't slept for 7 years. I mean, people whine about it, but they actually don't build trust even though they think they're finding common ground. So unidentified callers, ooh, that's a funny one. Well, we could get into all kinds of things in the political climate today, so we'll stay away from that for the moment. But there are good reasons not to trust, okay? Just because I'm going to show today the the how to build trust and talk about the impact of trust and how it is the greatest possible advantage you can have. We call it the trust edge because we believe it's the best, greatest advantage you can possibly have. That doesn't mean I should trust everyone. So let's get out of that way. If that guy did that to you, don't trust that guy, or trust that guy to do the same thing again, right? Or if that person lied to you, if that or whatever. So what we're really talking about today is how can I be most trusted in my role. But before we get into it, let's just touch on a little bit of the newest research, and then we'll get into exactly how we build it in the framework for that. So some of the newest research, I think Allison's going to put it in the chat if you want to look deeper into our last few years of research, the 2021 Trust Outlook. It's an executive look at trust, interviews across the country, and most of our studies are global. 2020, I think, or 2019 was top GDP country on every continent. It's 1.8% margin of error, 1.7% on the U.S. side. So just a couple touches, but a significant study. So one finding last year, number one reason people want to work for an organization. Generally, actually even buy or even be there. But number one reason, ahead of more pay, ahead of more autonomy, ahead of a more fun work environment with a ping pong table, they want to trust their leadership more than anything else. Last year, half of Americans said they invested $1,000 or more based purely on trust. I was blown away by the next statistic, which found 13 million of Americans said they invested $100,000 or more based purely on trust. What about generations? Last year, Zs and millennials said they'd work longer hours, be a better team player. They'd even take a pay cut if they could work with people or for people they trust. But before we get into ageism, which I'm getting kind of sick of, every generation, traditionalists, boomers, X, Y, Z, and ABC, they all said the same thing, plus or minus 1%. If you've ever heard of the Net Promoter Score, it's a good idea. The problem is that it asks the question of, would you refer people how do you get more referrals in your business? The only metric for increasing referrals is increased trust. You want to get more engagement? The only way is increased trust. People say, well, I want to take an engagement survey to get more engagement. You don't get engagement with engagement. The only way is increased trust. That's what we found. In the study, 92% of people would trust their senior leader more if they were more transparent about their mistakes. Let's take a look at when this hit me over the head. But this is interesting because my oldest daughter, I'm on a walk with her. She's a teenager at the time. And I'll never forget this. And it pointed to this finding later. We're walking, and she said, I don't know if it was about boys or grades or what. She said, Dad, you wouldn't understand because you're perfect. And you and I both know that's sweet to be their hero at 3 years old, but you got a problem if that's what they're saying at 15 or 13. And you want a healthily confident daughter, but I knew I needed to do something different. See, many people read the top of this. 92% of people would trust their leader more if they were more transparent about their mistakes. These days, I get to sit by presidents of countries and presidents of companies. I get to sit by heads of pro sports teams, and what I see is imposter syndrome with leaders that are scared to death they're going to be found out. And they need someone to listen to, and they need someone to be real with, and they need someone to love them. But the deal here is you got to be transparent about your mistakes. And what I learned about my oldest daughter, she saw me fly to things like this, get picked up by a sedan, go on a jet, do this, speak. The kids often would come with me. But she didn't see all the stuff that happened, everything that happens that my wife knows and everybody else knows. So I made an intention. Once a week when we go on a walk, I started sharing the times I failed. The time I bought used all of our money to buy a business and lost everything right before she was born. The time I made this mistake. The time I don't need to go into therapy now, but I just started to share all the mistakes I've made, or many of them. What happened to our relationship? Just changed forever, that's all. So, trust impacts everything, I think, more than anything else. It matters now more than ever. One way is when we're, as leaders at least, transparent about our mistakes. There are many ways. We're going to get into them. But before we get into how we build trust, a little more thought on that first question I asked in the research. What is the cost of a lack of trust? What is a lack of trust costing you. What's a lack of trust costing me? It's the biggest cost you have. It's the biggest cost I have. It's the biggest cost we have in our programs. It's the biggest cost you and I might have in recruiting. Well, can I trust them? Can I trust 4-H youth development with my kids? Can I trust this program? Can I trust CYFAR to do the right thing with this grant money? Can I trust you to use your resources well? The question everybody's asking is, can I trust you? And we all have a gap. We all have a gap. Even at this, all we talk about and deal with here at the Institute is trust. And I have a gap. I'm not fully trusted in every way. So when we can see the cost and close that gap, it affects everything. So the question I have for you, and maybe write in the chat, let's see if we can be authentic and transparent here. What's a lack of trust costing you? What's a lack of trust costing in your programming, your organization? Think about it a little bit. Put it in the chat if you will. I mean, when I deal with companies, of course, I can think, well, if I take attrition at 2.5 times hiring costs, we had one company, they said that we saved them $2 to $4 million in attrition costs in 1 year when they started thinking differently about trust. Someone says miscommunication, innovation. Innovation's true, right? If teams don't trust each other, they won't share ideas. Creativity goes down, innovation goes down. Teams trust each other, it all goes up. Hours of documentation and reporting. Because I don't trust you, I've got to document everything because you just don't trust me. Undeniably. Opportunities, efficiency, initiative. Participants, productivity, progress, undeniable, time. All of these things are true. I was stuck in a boardroom not too long ago with one of the biggest companies in the world. This group of maybe 12 or so was only over 116,000 employees at the time. Everyone in the room was probably individually, they were worth $20 million each. But I could see something on the first day of being stuck in the boardroom with them for 2 days. They don't just not trust each other, they don't like each other. I said, what do you think? You're called to lead this organization. What do you think a lack of trust is costing? Just here, where you're called to lead and you're getting paid well. And to that question, they answered in one unified response in 2 minutes. We think it's costing $500 million. Of course, they were wrong. It was costing way more. The cost you have, a lack of it, is your biggest expense. All right, so let's go on to our first breakout of only 2 breakouts in our short time together. But here's the question, we'll jump over here. Where have you seen trust built? Before we get into our framework for building trust that we're gonna come back and spend the balance of our time on, how have you seen it built in the midst of crisis and recovery? You've seen people do something right. And I can give you examples. Let me jump back to talking to them for just a second. I'll give you an example. One of the big hospitals, the biggest, best emergency hospital in Minnesota. They're a client of ours. We love them. They're doing great, important work right now. But when this first happened in March, when COVID hit and kids without COVID on the wing, the whole hospital area, without, they would come in, these 4-year-olds, let's say, 3-year-olds, they'd come in, they needed a shot every week in some cases. And what they learned is all the nurses had to have on this hazmat suit and everything else, and the kid would come in and start bawling and cry and run away, and they couldn't give him a shot. So one of the things they did quickly is took a picture of that nurse with a big smile, and they put that picture on the button. And when the kid would come in, they would say, the nurse would say, "This is really me." And the kid would look at the button and remember, and the nurse was able to give the shot because of this shift of how they were able to build trust even in the midst of the times that we live in. I mean, we think about it today, there are some benefits actually. Introverts are more heard than they've ever been because they tend to share ideas in Zoom rooms over boardrooms where extroverts sometimes dominate. CEOs are communicating with their whole staffs in some cases more than ever before, and they're certainly more humanized. All of a sudden we see senior leaders with a kid running with the undies behind him or the cat jumping on the keyboard, like I said before, or something like that. We all of a sudden see them as a human instead of up in the tower. There are good things that happen. There are challenges that are happening. Right now, you're going to go into a chat for 5 minutes with about 5 people and share each other's name and then answer this question. How have you seen trust built in the midst of crisis and recovery? How have you done it or how have you seen it? Go ahead and jump into your chat rooms right now. You should be invited.
Suzanne,
Yes,
have you heard from Danny?
I have not.
Okay. Thank you. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Hey, Suzanne, how we doing over there? Is everything coming through fine?
It is.
Good.
Yes. Yeah, no issues whatsoever over here. The sound from your videos is being shared perfectly, no issues. So
Good.
yeah, I
see
was
lots-
laughing so hard with the video with the trust fall because I knew it was going to happen. I knew he was going to fall forward.
Well, yeah, no, they're having fun. I see lots of smiles and engagement, so it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll go to mute again, and I'll be back with you in a couple minutes.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
David, our 5 minutes are up, so I'm going to call them all back.
let's see, where is that courthouse that Ellen's in front of? Well, that's a house that's beautiful. Is that a certain landmark, Ellen? Huh? Ana Maria Diaz Martinez. My daughter's name Maria. Maria. All right, love it. Good. So trust, confianza. Confianza.
Confianza, that's right.
There we go. All right, where am I where are you out of? Where am I finding you today, Ana Maria?
I'm in Washington State.
All right.
Yep.
Well, there we go. Okay, feel free to get ready to unmute quickly. Okay, let's hear it. Who had an idea? What team had an idea? Maybe it wasn't yours. Maybe someone on your team said it. What is a way you've seen trust built just in the last 6 months? What's a way you've seen somebody get creative? And what's something they've done to increase trust? Just go like this with your hands and I'll call on you, or jump right in and we'll figure it out. Or, yep, there we go. Mr. Herman, go ahead. Thank you.
All right, I think the overlying theme we had was that know that people have your best interests at heart.
All right, thank you. When you know people have your best interests at heart, it's very hard to create a healthy, accountable culture. I'm not going to teach accountability today, but a lot of people don't understand what it is. Very hard to teach an accountable culture where you don't feel like people have your back. Thank you. Somebody else.
Being offered support from community members, coworkers, colleagues, and them not just asking how you're doing, but actually trying to find out how you're doing, ways to help.
Can you give one example of how you saw someone give real support in this time?
So in our Prosper meetings that we have twice a month with our team, we always start with how you're doing, checking in. And when any one of us, I'm gonna speak for myself, I had some issues with some family things, and they came together to talk to me, ask me how they could help me. They checked on me afterwards. So it made me feel like they really were concerned about my well-being.
Wonderful. One more idea specifically you've seen, anybody? I can't see it. Yes, Dana or Donna.
Oh, Dana, yes.
Thank you.
I think just sharing the end results with folks who have made contributions to an effort, so that they can see from A to Z, like the results of their contribution.
Yeah, they want to see that they're making it, that what they're doing is making a difference. And you might be the hands and feet of it, but they want to see that it's making a difference, and that builds trust. If we were given this and we did this and they hear about it, they're more apt to give again, right? Or be a part of it again or whatever. Perfect. And there are many other ideas. Feel free to chat them. Let's jump over to a couple other ideas here. So trust is a risk. Even though it's the highest value you can gain is to be trusted, it's a risk. So if this first half of the research showed a lack of trust is the biggest expense we have, if it showed that without trust we actually fail, generally leaders and organizations fail without trust, then how do you actually build it? Is it just what people said? Is it just honesty and integrity, or is there more to it? Well, it turns out there were 8 traits that came out of that original research. I call it the 8-pillar framework. I know in a short time together, I can talk a full day about each of these pillars. So I'm going to give all 8 because I think we should at least know the language. And then we'll go deeper on 2 or 3 of them so you have something you can apply tomorrow morning in your work. But for context, all 8 research funnels, a C word is kind of the comprehensive signifier of each of the research funnels, and I'll go through them quickly so you have an understanding of how to build trust. And we've used this globally. We've used it across industry, from pro sports teams to corrupt governments. But I want to give some context so you understand all 8. Number 1 is clarity. We found to be trusted, you have to be clear. People trust the clear, and they mistrust or distrust the ambiguous and the overly complex. Whenever you overcomplexify something beyond what is needed, you lose clarity, which loses trust. You have to be clear about the benefits. You have to be clear about the impact. You have to be clear about how you might use those resources. Clarity wins. People that have a 100-page strategic plan compared to a half page always lose, because if I can see it on a half page, I can understand it, communicate it, and hold people accountable to it. Clarity is trusted. Number 2 is compassion. We trust those that care beyond themselves. You know, this is why, go ahead and put it in the chat really quick. Who do you think is the most trusted person in the world to the most people? Let's see if we can chat this one out. Who's most trusted in the world to the most people? Around the world, who is it? We have Mom, we have the Pope, we have parents, we have Mother Teresa, Jesus, we have some others coming. But many of you got it. To the most people around the world, Mom is most trusted. Why? Because she cares beyond herself. She shows compassion beyond. She'll stay up late. She'll put salve in that ugly wound. She'll help with that science project. She has so much care and compassion. Others do. Dads do. Mom wins on this statistic. Number 3, character. We trust those that do what's right over what's easy. We're not going to get into this. We have a 7-step process, how you drive high character into organizations. But we knew this would be important, but as you can imagine, character isn't everything. Number 4 is competency. I might trust you. Let me see down there. Jessica, let's say. Jessica Aguilar, I can tell from here, she has compassion and she has character. That doesn't mean I'll trust Jessica to give me a root canal, right? Because of competency. So, and maybe you can do that, but the bottom line is, I trust you. You have to have all 8 of these in your area that you want to be trusted. This is why I love land-grant universities generally, because they take research, we love research, and tie it to education I can use, right? To application. But competency is trusted. So, we trust those that have character, but in the area you want to trust them. You know, if you're still leading the same way you were 20 years ago, I don't trust you because you're not staying competent and fresh and relevant and capable. Number 5 is commitment. We trust those that stick in the face of adversity. If you take anybody who's left a legacy in your life or in history, your mom or dad or first grade teacher, Mandela, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jesus, or Joan of Arc, and you'll find somebody that was trusted because they were committed to something beyond themselves, often to death, and they were trusted for it. So commitment, we're going to come back to that one. Number 6 is connection, the ability to connect and collaborate with others. You know, we trust those. If you're going to hoard the resources, if you're unwilling to be transparent, if you're unwilling to share, we don't tend to trust you. We trust those that are willing to connect and collaborate. Each of these pillars have counterforces inside of organizations. A counterforce of connection is siloing. If I see you just keeping all this over here, not sharing ideas, not innovating, connecting, that's a counterforce to connection. Number 7 is contribution. The number 1 word that came out of this research funnel was results. We trust those that contribute results. So you can have compassion, you can have character, but if you don't deliver the results I expected or asked for, I can't trust you. Let's think about it this way. Let's go have a surgery. Okay, we have to have an amputation. We go in for surgery. The surgeon cuts off the wrong leg. We got a problem. Might have been the most compassionate surgeon I ever met, but we didn't get the results we expected or asked for, and so we don't trust. You also have to contribute results. This is the problem. We have to have all 8. So you can't just sit up there and have compassion. You can't just be clear. We have to be clear, and we have to contribute results. Number 8 is consistency. Sameness is trusted. We talked about it before. You're late all the time, trust you'll be late. But this is why I trust McDonald's. Even if I don't like McDonald's, I trust them because I've had the same exact burger on 6 continents. This is why we can't stand moody people, right? What are you going to be like today? Happy, sad, mad, cry, you're everywhere. I would rather have an angry curmudgeon every single day than a moody person because I can manage the consistency. Sameness is trusted. Now let's say a few things about all of this. In our short time together, just an overview. But there's a case for trust, and there's a way to build it. And this 8-pillar framework is the way to build it. I believe, I hope without any ego, but a whole lot of research and a whole lot of experience on 6 continents that you can solve every organizational and leadership issue against these 8. In fact, these 8 will define the real issue. You think you got an issue today in rolling out a certain program. You've got an issue today in how you're getting results from people, or compelling them to give you the results you'd like, or the feedback you'd like, or you're getting frustrated, or you have an issue in working with a team member. It always comes down to one or more of these 8. If you want to solve the real issue, learn these 8. People say, oh, it's an engagement issue. It never is. It's one of these. People might even say to me, David, isn't it ever a communication issue? I see that you like C words. Isn't it communication? It is never, ever a communication issue at the core. Communication is happening all the time. Clarity, communication is trusted. Unclear isn't. Compassionate communication, where I care about you, that's trusted. Hateful communication is not trusted. High character is, low character isn't. Consistent is, inconsistent isn't. You have to define the problem. If you can do it against these 8 pillars that build trust, you will actually solve the root issue. And that's the problem with most people. They're not solving the root issue, so they don't see the results they'd hoped for. With this framework, you can solve the root issue. Let's look at a pillar in our time together right now. Number 1, clarity. People trust the clear, and they mistrust or distrust the ambiguous. Couple clarity slides for you. These guys are clear. Here we go. I like this one. All right. If you don't smile right now, come on. Where's the sense of humor? Okay. So I'm going to give 2 ideas under clarity. This is where we're going to spend most of our time for today, because we need to get a couple ideas under clarity. The cool thing about clarity is you can do something about clarity and see results very quickly. So 2 relatively simple ideas that can have dramatic results. First idea, VUCA. This one's just for this time that we're living in. I just want to think about this. So VUCA was taught at the U.S. War College, especially through the 80s, and I think still today. But I was talking to a CEO friend of mine that runs a great medical device company. And we were talking in March and April and May, like, what's helping him right now in the midst of crisis and recovery? And he said, well, one thing I go back to is VUCA. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And what they knew in the Army is that we would face VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. I think if I was going to ask each of you personally, hey, have you had any uncertainty the last few months? You would all agree. We have. So what do we do when we're faced with uncertainty? Well, he was telling me about his true-to-life story where he had practiced jumping out of a helicopter onto sand beaches in the U.S. And he had practiced, but the first time he was dropped in enemy territory from a helicopter onto the sand, he said it was different. It just was, it was uncertain. I didn't know what, and a lot of people in the midst of uncertainty or complexity, they might, so to speak, stand up and get shot in battle. He said, what we were taught to do, and I went right back to it, and I went back to it, now I go back to it again in the midst of the times that we're in, is in the midst of uncertainty, pause and ask 2 questions. The 2 questions, what can I control and what should I do first? What can I control? Many people in the last few months have spent all their brain calories on things they cannot control. Well, the government should do this. Well, the election is that. Well, this is that. Well, the problem over there. You can't do anything about that. But it turns out when you pause and ask this question, there is a whole lot more than you can control about your situation than you thought. The leaders that I've walked with, that I've seen do well over the last several months, have paused and asked this question. But what, all that's happening, I got to be aware of it, but what can I control? And then they ask, and what should I do first? It's a time of great overwhelm for many. And they think, well, I should do this, and I got to do that, and there's no way I could think of what I've got all these things to do. You still have to pause in the midst of battle, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of our times, and the great leaders today are pausing and saying, but of all these things, what should I do first? Then, now I've got that done. Now, what should I do first? Oh, now, what should I do first? And so on. So, VUCA is one idea that can help us get to a little more clarity even in this time. Now let's go to another idea. The 3 questions that take an idea to an action. You might think, well, I bet it's the why. No, the why is a good idea. I love Senec's work that shows how the why motivates people and gets people behind things and all that. That's good to have first. But I see teams singing about their why right off the cliff. You might think it's the right who. Get the right who's on the bus. That's good too. But that is not the question that gets an idea to an action. The three questions that actually turn an idea to an action. Number one, how am I going to get there? Number two, more important, how? And the most important of all, how? Let's take a look. I started asking people when I knew that I needed to lose weight. I said, how do you stay fit on the road, traveling like we do? You know what people told me? Eat less, exercise. That was not clear enough for me. I said, but how? How? One idea. A doctor came up to me after an event, 80 years old, fit as could be. He said, David, here's an idea that actually I think has a final how. Most men, if they just wouldn't drink their calories, they could eat exactly the same and they'd lose 30 to 50 pounds. Now, at least that was a clear how, because I can look at something. Is there calories in that? No, I can drink it, right? So for 6 months, I didn't drink a calorie. But the point isn't anything about calories, and it certainly isn't healthcare advice. The point is, can I look at it? Because I would get on a plane and I would have a Coke. 2 Cokes was a meal. I didn't know what I was doing. Now, if you sit next to me on the plane, you'll notice I order something without calories. Look, it's got to be that clear. You've got to ask how until you're going to do something differently today or tomorrow. How? What's this mean for you? Don't tell me you're going to call people. Don't tell me you're going to set meetings. Until you ask how, until you're going to do something specific today or tomorrow, I do not trust you. How? You're going to do that. Okay, then how are you going to do that? Okay, then how are you going to do that? Until you're going to do something today or tomorrow. And you can always ask how until you can do something today or tomorrow. This seems simple. It is not. I mean, I've worked with global governments on this. They just complexify things. But the truth is, until I can get to a how that I can use today or tomorrow, I don't have the hope to do something, right? You can do it, and you can't have 50 hows, just a how. Just go down the list like, oh, we want a better culture. Okay, how are we going to do that? We're going to be nice. Is anybody do anything? No. Okay, how are we going to be nice? We're going to appreciate people more. Is anybody do anything if you just say we're going to appreciate it? No. But how are you going to do that? I'm going to write notes. Okay, somebody tells me they're going to write an appreciation note every day for the next 9 days. I don't trust them. How? Until you're going to do something today or tomorrow. If you do this in teams, please stop having meetings where you don't ask how until somebody will do something today or tomorrow. Most meetings are wasted with people just talking. They talk about the idea, talk about the issue forever. They don't do anything and they feel like they accomplished something. Not true. You've got to ask how until you do, not everything, just something. Just set the meeting, make the call, just something that starts the momentum. When you use this process in teams, remember, the final how includes the who, when, and where. Even for me personally, let's say I'm going to work out tomorrow morning and I don't know it's going to be 6 in the morning, I'm not going to do it. If I'm going to work out tomorrow morning, I'm either going to go for a run or I'm going to go work out. If I have a choice, I'll do neither. But the who is critical in teams. Remember this. Co-leadership is terrible. It might sound 4-H-y. It's not. Collaborative leadership is excellent. Co-leadership is terrible. Research shows if you have more than one person on a final task, you have 50% less chance of ever getting done. Collaborate, but have a person on a final task. That's the only way to clarity, trust, and accountability. Okay, 2 ideas under clarity. There they are. Under clarity, VUCA, when you find uncertainty, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, ask those 2 questions. What can I control and what should I do first? And whenever you're working on any project, big ones all the way to small, you've got to ask how until you'll do something starting today or tomorrow. How? Next pillar for our short time together, commitment. People trust those that stay committed in the face of adversity. Just a couple commitment slides here for you. There's some commitment for you. These guys are really committed. What's the most asked for tattoo in America? And if you'll ask for that tattoo, this is the most asked for commercial tattoo, not across a heart, somebody's name, but mom. But the most asked for tattoo in America, Harley Davidson. They'll tat it on their body. They're committed, right? They'll wear the goods. But it wasn't always this way. In 1981, when the new ownership took over this tanking little motorcycle company that should have been wiped off the map of American history, the owners said, we're going to be committed to two things in a new way. Number one, quality again. Number two, our favorite first-time buyer, who they defined at the time as the yuppie that wants to look like a renegade on the weekend. And that commitment bred commitment. In fact, if you would have put $1 in Harley stock over the 25 years before I started the research, you would have put it in one of the top 25 American stocks, and your dollar would have appreciated by nearly 18,000%. Commitment breeds commitment. Think about this. What would really increase, actually, let's ask this question. How do you rebuild trust once you've lost it? We've all made a mistake. We've all lost trust. We've made mistakes, right? How do I rebuild it? Apologize? You never rebuild trust on the apology. I was a CEO from the Netherlands, came to America. We became friends. He'd been here a couple weeks. I said, what's the first thing you notice in America? He said, you want to know the truth, David? I said, yeah, what do you think? He said, first thing I noticed in America is you got a bunch of lying apologizers. They all say they're sorry to me and they don't mean it. I'm sorry I'm late. No, you're not. You're late every time. We don't trust the apology. Doesn't mean you don't need to start with an apology, but the only way to rebuild trust is to make and keep a new commitment. It's the only way. You want to rebuild trust? You lost it? You've got to make and keep a new commitment. And this starts with yourself. I'm going to go back to the farm. I'm 10 or 11 years old. I'll never forget this day. My older siblings are off the farm or working at someone else's farm that day. Nobody else, none of our hired staff. Must have been growing season, not planting or harvest, because it's just my mom and dad and myself. We had breakfast by 5 in the morning. 5:30 in the morning, we're out the door. Sun comes up early in northern Minnesota. I jump in the blue Chevy pickup truck with Dad. We drive down the quarter-mile driveway. We go from field to field, irrigator to irrigator. We are especially known for dry edible beans in those days, rotating with potatoes and corn and everything else, but dry edible, like kidney beans especially. We're in the far reaches of the farm. Remember, this is 8 miles from the nearest little town. You can't see another farm from ours. It's a public dirt road, and there's some trash in the middle of that dirt road. My daddy hates litter. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do when he swerved that pickup truck over in such a way that my door was immediately above that litter. I opened the door, and I reached down, and I picked up that Playboy magazine. I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong. I used to be an ethics professor. I am here to tell you, if you act on what you say you don't believe, you lose trust in less than a second. And I knew exactly what my daddy believed about this kind of thing. I'd seen him mentor our rough, tough hired guys and my older siblings. I knew he didn't think it was the right way to look at women or treat women. But this day, I would see it. On this day, we kept going from field. He kicked it under the seat, and then we kept going from field to field and irrigator to irrigator. Pretty soon, it's about mid-morning on the farm. Some of you know what that is. 7:30. Came up the quarter-mile driveway. He dropped me off at the house to help Mom play. I don't know what I did. No windows on that side of the house. No way to see what Dad was up to. But he drove the pickup truck out to the combines and to what we call the shop, to the tractors and the combine there. And I don't know why that morning. Sometime the phone rang mid-morning, some random time in the morning. Remember when there was one phone on a farm with a cord attached? Anybody know what party lines are? Oh yeah, you've lived. The phone rang, and usually Dad would just put the note on Mom would put the note on Dad's lunch spot because nothing was so urgent. But this day she said, David, go give this to your dad. I took the message. I ran on the attached garage. Remember, no windows on that side, the back side of the house. No way anybody would see what he was up to. Except there's one little entry door window. And I don't know why. Any other day this age, I'd blow through that door and run out to my dad, but I paused inside. No way Dad would hear me coming. Lost most of his hearing in the Korean War. No way he would see or think I was coming, but I was. No way he knew I was watching. But I stopped inside, and I peeked through the one little entry door window that looks at the back side of the farm. And from 100 yards away, I watched my daddy, not thinking a soul's watching. I watched him pull himself up from under the tractor he was working on. I watched him walk around the other side of the combine. I watched him walk between two trees and up to the back side of that blue Chevy pickup truck. And I watched him. And what I saw would change my life forever. Because I knew what my daddy said about this kind of thing, but this day I would see it. I watched him open the door, reach under the seat, pick up that Playboy magazine, and then I watched him. I watched him keep his arm outstretched and walk 30 paces over to the shop furnace where I saw him throw it into the fire. You think I trust my daddy? Absolutely, because he does what he says he'll do even when no one's looking for. That's where we create the habits for when someone just might be. So, where are we? We have a case for trust. Why I believe a lack of trust is the biggest expense we have in every relationship. We have an 8-pillar framework. I believe everything comes under those 8 for how you build trust in any life, any relationship, any team or organization. We took a little deeper look at 2 of the 8 pillars, clarity, VUCA, and how. We took a little deeper look at commitment. We only can rebuild trust by making and keeping a new commitment. You know, under that one, sometimes people ask me, David, you talk a lot about being most trusted, the most trusted in your industry, helping people be most trusted. Is it better to be trusted or trustworthy? Of course, anybody can build these pillars and look trusted or appear trusted. That's the biggest danger. What we're really going for is being worthy of it. So, in our short time left, we're going to jump back into breakouts for about 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes, and just ask, of these 8 pillars, what are you going to start with? Go around your little break room. I'm going to close us up in 2 minutes with a last statement or 2, but right now, jump into your breakouts and share what pillar would you focus on with your community, with this certain project, with a certain relationship. What pillar would it be? Share it with the breakout you're in. I'll see you in 2 minutes, and we'll wrap this all up. All right, actually, let's jump to number. Hey, everybody, I can see we're coming back. Here's the home stretch. Boy, have you had a big conference. If you're going to start with clarity, let me just see a little hand raise. Oh, there we go. Gretchen and Kevin. All right. If you're going to start with consistency, let's see a little hand raise. Ah, Christopher. Those are often the big 2. The good thing about those 2, if you start on those 2, you can see results very fast. If you had to start with character, you might that can take a little while. So I promise something. Everybody that would like it, if you would like, and you can just put this in the chat too, Allison, but anybody that would like a free follow-up program, 10 videos, and some of our other resources around accountability, trust, and everything else, just email Trust Tools to Allison, 1L, at trustedge.com. We promise that to you. And so just email her right now, Trust Tools, Allison at trustedge.com. Happy to give those to you. Finally, you know, I know many of you are working in cities, you're working in all kinds of diverse communities around the world. Hello to Guam and Puerto Rico if you're with us today, across the country. You heard about me. I grew up on the farm. One thing we said on the farm, you got to do the work. That pile doesn't shovel itself. The cows don't feed themselves. You got to do the work. And that's the problem with this trust stuff. People want to have something, oh, just 21 days. There's even been books on, oh, I can change a habit in 21 days. I don't think the research actually shows that, unless it's something not very good that you're getting addicted to. You got to do the work. And that's the thing about trust. But when you do the work, you've created the greatest possible advantage you can create in every relationship and in your work. I hope for you this advantage we've come to call the Trust Edge. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for letting me be here today. Mark, thanks for thinking of me. The whole team there at CYFAR, thank you. And I hope you wrap this up great. I bet we're going to go back to someone other than me.
We're going to go back to me, and I'm going to say thank you for being here.
Thank
David.
you.
It was
You'll be fine.
exciting. And I want to thank all of you who are still with us and wish you a really good rest of your week. Thank you all CYFAR participants and those that gave time to present and those that came together with us. And with that, Suzanne, any last words?
Yes, I just copied the evaluation into the chat. I will also send it to you, but if you want to get a head start on the evaluation, z.umn.edu/CYFAR 2020 eval. Thank you.
Suzanne, thank you. Suzanne led this effort along with Philip and Stephanie and Mark Otto. We want to thank all of them and thank all of you. Have a good evening.